Should be live. Live chat. Pop open Brave. All right, looks like we are live. Perfect. So, yeah. Guess I'll get some chill music going. Let's see, music. Let's do instrumentals. I'm just gonna throw on a few here. So we'll do this one, this one, this one, this one, that one. Yeah, we'll do those. Cool. So we got that playing. Yeah. Cool. Anyway, sweet. We got that going. Ooh, all right. So, when I last streamed, I was working on my game, my 2D top-down space RPG, which I'm hoping to name Neurality 3092. And I'm running into some growing pains with it. So this is my first project in Godot as a whole. I actually switched to this engine mid-development a while ago. Like, to be fair, I wasn't that far along in development, but I started it in GameMaker Studio 2, and I had never used Godot in any real capacity before that. So I ported the game to Godot, and since then I've sort of kept building on it, and I cobbled it together and made it work. But it seems like as I start to flesh out more and more features, I spend probably 85% of the time refactoring old code, 5% of the time working on a feature, and then 10% of the time fixing random ass bugs with said feature because of my old ass code. So last stream, I watched some videos. Hey, Saint Solitude, what's up? Welcome. So last stream, I watched a video by Godot about resources and how to use them, and gave me some food for thought, for sure. I definitely had some ideas. So what I did is, in my Discord, I basically started making like this diagram, which this is already messed up and wrong. So this isn't like concrete or whatever. But I started basically mapping out like what would the data of my game look like if I just rewrite it from scratch. Now that I sort of have a better idea of what I need to do, how would I rewrite it and how would I structure it using resources? So this was my attempt. So a lot of this stuff down here, the ship stuff, I already had kind of done. Yeah, it's pretty useless. So a lot of the ship stuff I already had, but if we look in my old project here, let's see. Let's take a look at my ship script, right? I started out with just declaring like, oh, hey, I have a class named ship, and this is all the stuff that it does. And I sort of built everything onto this ship, and I tried to break some stuff out into smaller components, and it didn't work too well because this ship script is still 1,500 lines of code. And at this point, like, I've tried refactoring it in place. It's rough. So yeah, it's pretty bad. Let's see, is the midget plate? Yeah, okay. So it's pretty bad. So I started breaking it out like, okay, well, how would I represent this stuff with resources? And so all the bottom half of this diagram I pretty much already had in the game, not in this way, but it was present in the old game in some way, shape, or form, some of it. The top stuff here, like dealing with like storyline and consequences and conditions and jobs, events, all this stuff, I just pulled this out of my ass, just spitballing. I had Claude kind of brainstorm for me a little bit, So a lot of this stuff is probably gonna change big time, because this is just me guessing. So not only am I unfamiliar with the concept of resources in Godot, but I don't know. So I started a project in Godot 4. I already have, it seems like I have a lot done on it, but really it's just kind of throwing stuff together. So here's the base file structure I'm going to go with down here. I might change this, but I've got assets for things like audio and sprites and all that stuff that I want to bring in, like fonts, just stuff that I would bring in to make my game, right? And then I have resources, which are going to be using actual resources in Godot, because I had only worked with nodes, really. I mean, I used a lot of the built-in resources, but I didn't make my own resources. I didn't understand the importance of it or the power of it, basically. So, and then, so resources, yeah. So schema is what I just, so basically when I started making my resources, I'm coming at it from the perspective of like, I'm just declaring like custom data types, and this is just what the data should look like. So there's no functionality to it at all at the schema level. So it's like right here in my ship data, it extends resource. It's a class name ship data, and it just has like some basic fields and stuff I would need, some data I would store that represents what a ship is on a basic level. And then when I go to implement that, when I go to create an implementation of this resource, it's going to go into resources. I don't know, it's kind of confusing. I'm going to rename these probably. But schema is like what the data should look like, and then resources is me basically creating separate resources, implementing that data shape, if that makes sense. So for example, like I've declared this ship data resource. Well, I can just create an instance of like this resource basically that has all these variables customized for every ship I'm going to make. And then I can, it's apparently it works a lot better in Godot, and especially with Godot 4, because they now have typed arrays and dictionaries. So I'm able to do a lot more. So you can see here, I have this export variable base price. It's an array of currency, and currency is another resource that I've created. Currency defines the thing that rules the world. Worlds, I guess, would be correct in this context. So what's the currency called? Is it like a credit? Is it a dollar? Is it a coin? Like what's the currency going to be called? How much currency do you currently have of this? And then what symbol do you use to denote it in like the UI and stuff like that? So dollars, we have like the dollar sign, right? Well, maybe we want something else. So I'm not sure whether or not I want to use a string for this, or if I want to use like a texture. That way I can have like my own custom icon. But for now, I'm going to just see if I can make it work just using Unicode characters. So as I make my currencies, I can just use like one of these built-in like symbols and see if it'll work. So yeah. So this is like my schema of what a currency looks like, right? So there's no methods or anything at this point. It's just this is what it is and what it does. I think as I begin to grow it out, the resource will in fact have some methods that manage what a currency needs to do, right? And I can emit signals on various things. So, and if I go to my resources, down here you can see I've got 4 implementations of currency already. So if we take a look at my currency for coalition, you can see over here, it's basically lets me specify what some variables of it are, what properties. So the name of this currency is going to be a stellar. The amount is just 0. As I create new instances of these, then I can set the amount. So say, for example, as I add this to, say, a ship's inventory, which is another resource, I'd be able to specify how much of this currency I have. And I can create multiple currencies and more currencies. So it's going to add some... hold up. let me back up. So probably talking multiple currencies in a game probably gives the wrong idea. Everyone's probably trained to think, oh my god, he's going to have like gold and gems and all this other crap that's like pay to win. No. That's not why I'm making these currencies. The currencies are in the game that I'm going to be making. Like in the overall, there's 4 major factions that I have planned. There's a faction of like AI that sort of are the overlords of humans. There's a faction of like rebel humans who want to do their own thing. There's like 2 alien factions, right? And each of these factions, they're not going to use a universal currency, because AI is probably going to use like some sort of crypto thing, right? Like not actual crypto in the game, but like it's meant to be futuristic. So yeah, maybe they have their own version of Bitcoin. Whereas the humans probably have something that's a bit different. So they're not gonna track their credits in a cryptographic manner. They're gonna have their own currency. And both aliens as well, complete different races. They're just gonna, like, you're not gonna walk over to you're not gonna fly over to alien space and buy an alien ship with like synthocracy credits. That's not gonna work. So that's why I have multiple currencies in the game, and there'll be like a way to exchange them and whatnot, perhaps. So it's gonna be real interesting. But this is the groundwork, I think, to make it happen. And also, I checked this box to make it local to scene, because if we do that, it says if true, the resource is duplicated for each instance of all scenes using it. At runtime, the resource can be modified in one scene without affecting the other instances. So, from what I understand of resources so far, if I were to, like, so I created this currency coalition, right? If I have, like, say 6 ships, and they all have inventory, if I were to put, like, a currency coalition in each of their inventories, and I was to change one, it would change them all, because I'm changing the actual resource itself. However, if I make it local to scene, it duplicates it and severs that reference in a way so that I'm modifying my own copy of it as opposed to everything as a whole. So that's good to know. So I just checked that to local to scene. I believe that's how that works. All of this is pretty much academic theory at this point, because I haven't actually gotten to the point where I can test any of this stuff yet. So this is my first attempt at like creating implementations of a resource type, of a custom resource. So yeah. So in theory, once I start building my nodes, I should be able to just stick on these resources as needed, and I could change the behavior of them without having to like do some crazy shit that I was doing in the old game. Yeah. So for example, like, over half of the lines of code in my old game here is all just functions for AI stuff. Like determining like what the state is. I have a bunch of inputs. And so if I wanted to break this out, let's take a look at like my little diagram again here. If I go, let's see, over here. So you can see I've got a ship controller, which is going to basically, I would imagine, determine what the controls of a ship should be. And then I have a player controller variant of that, and I have an AI controller variant of that. You can ignore these over here. These are going to be implementations of an AI controller. I didn't have to create them separately. I'm still learning here. But, so that's an idea. So if we look at what I've like conceived so far in this game, if we go into, let's go to my schema, let's go to my ship. You can see down here I have a controllers folder. If we expand that, I have an AI controller, I have a player controller. Both of these extend ship controller, and then they have a ship controls resource that they pass around back and forth. So let's take a look at what ship controls are. So these are basically the controls that you can use to control a ship. And I just have them set as just booleans for right now, just true or false. This either is happening or it's not, kind of thing. Like, hey, I'm either turning left or I'm not. I'm either accelerating or I'm not. I'm either firing my primary weapons or I'm not. So, yeah, these are the basic things. And these can be passed around. So say, let's go to ship controller. So this is like my base class for a ship controller. So I have a signal that this class will emit whenever the controls change. So that way I can make it in a way that it's self-contained. It doesn't have to have any knowledge of anything outside of it, in theory. I'll get to that in a second. But whenever the controls change, then I can emit a signal, and any of my other nodes can subscribe to that signal, and they can make changes or adjust their behavior as needed based on the inputs that are going on. Now, I don't even know if this is going to be needed at this point, but I assume it will be, so I just added it there. If not, I can remove it later, right? And that's the nice thing about having these resources set up, is that I can just modify a resource, and it seems to be much easier to just modify a resource, because if I remove a field, it's automatically removed from all implementations of that resource. If I add a field to a resource, I can set a default value, and all the existing implementations of that resource will use that default value. I would still have to go in there and change it on a case-by-case basis, which in reality, what I was doing in my old game, I basically had these auto loads. So if I go to, let's see, what's a good auto load? Locations, I guess. So let's take a look at locations. So I have a variable called list that is a dictionary, and this is in Godot 3, so I can't really have typed dictionaries. So all of this stuff is loosey-goosey. So I have a key here that corresponds to the name of the location. I also basically store that key internally, because if I ever needed to pass this dictionary somewhere, I would be passing this, and I wouldn't have access to this key right here. So I'm including that in there. So this approach was working, but it had a lot of pains. So namely, autocomplete functionality in the editor was non-existent, because this is a dictionary. It's basically like a JSON-like object, and it didn't have autocomplete for anything, and there was zero type safety. So this name, I'm assigning a string. In the code, I can assign it to be an integer, and it wouldn't complain about it. And if I tried to use it as a string, the game would crash. So that was a bummer. So I kept having to go back and manually make sure that everything was typed in good. Sometimes typos would be a pain as well. And so having all this stuff here, the data was here, but it wasn't very manageable. And especially as I started nesting more and more things into it. So we have Earth. This location has a menu items thing, which I could probably get away with. It has shipyard ships, which if it does have a shipyard, these are the ships that it's selling, as well as the pricing modifiers for it. So, look, okay, that's there. If it has any weapons, I could sell those too. If it has any upgrades, any trade goods that might be sold at this location, what faction controls this. So it just has a bunch of stuff here in the location. And all of this stuff was a nightmare to implement in the code, because I kept having to basically reference a lot of keys that may or may not be there. There's no type safety. If I type them in wrong, it sucks. And if I had to make any change, I had to go through and adjust every one of these locations to accommodate a new key or something, right? Which is basic stuff. You would expect to do that anyway. However, resources, from my understanding, seem to alleviate some of that strain. So I was trying to just, okay, what if I just refactor my current code in Godot 3.6 to just be resources? Because they have resources. Why didn't I do that? I tried to. I made a whole new branch, I started just, okay, let's just focus on upgrades, right? So we have a key. We have the title inside, basically the same key inside the object in case I just have to pass only the object. I could still reference it there if needed. We have a few basic things. So this is also an annoying thing. Sometimes I might have descriptions, sometimes I might have desk, sometimes I might have some other slang term for it or whatever, some other abbreviation. And there's like no consistency across any of my code because I'm a human. I make mistakes. I change my mind all the time. And I was running into some pains with that. So, yeah, when I tried to create a resource of this, I basically was like, okay, I got the tags. The tags system I have in this game is I basically just have a file that is an auto load. It's a singleton, which means it's in scope globally throughout the entire app or the entire game. And I was going to use enums for this. However, I quickly found that when I did this, if I wanted to reorganize them to be alphabetical order, it would break the order of declaration, which means that any enums I have in a save file are now potentially corrupt because they might not be referencing the same enum anymore. So I decided to go with constants with just strings instead, which is a bit tedious. However, I could decide to add a new key or a new tag here and keep it alphabetical so I can quickly scan through it as needed. And I couldn't find a way to ideally implement this as a resource using tags because it, again, I want to have that type safety, and Godot does not have any type safety of arrays or dictionaries. And yeah, so I wasn't sure how to handle that. So I just started a new Godot 4 project, and I just started letting the creative juices flow and throwing it together. I'm not very far on it so far, but I'm pretty happy with a lot of this stuff down here. Most of this stuff is actually already changed, but the concept is still the same. As far as like the star system, like locations, I broke it out to have a concept of a service. So if a location offers a service, I can define what that service is. So if they offer a shipyard, if they have a market where you can trade goods, if they have refueling, can you refuel your ship there? If they have a bank where you can exchange currencies, that'd be awesome. If they have a job board service where you can pick up little mini jobs to just basically get some income going, right? You can do that. So I threw together that system, and at least in concept from a data level. And then up here, I'm not really sure how this is all going to work, to be honest. So I'm probably going to do some more thinking about this. But I am pretty excited with how it's looking, at least at the data level. Like, it makes sense to me. And the fact that I can easily customize this stuff on the fly is of huge benefit to me. Now, it does seem kind of silly, whereas before, I just had, okay, all of my upgrades, bam, they're right here. These are all my upgrades, right? And then I could create scenes of those that have like whatever, you know, sprite or whatnot on there. And I kind of liked having one place to reference all of this stuff, and I could still do that. So, for example, I can just create auto loads like I did in the old version. I can just create more auto loads that simply defines a array of whatever resource I want to manage. And I can just make sure to add all those resources to it as I create implementations of them. And then I have a master list that I can pull from. And yeah, in theory, Again, all untested. I've just watched like a bunch of videos on Godot resources, and that's where I'm at. So yeah, I'm just kind of picking away at it. But if we go back to the old game and we run it, so let's load. So you can see I have a stupid upgrade on my ship, which looks silly. So let's just restart it. So let's do a new game. Overwrite old save. So there's a few things to be aware of with things being different between engines. So this is Godot 3. I'm starting it over in Godot 4. Well, what does Godot 4 actually give you? Well, in addition to all the type safety benefits that I get, there are also some downsides. So I tried to port my game to Godot 4 in place probably a year or two ago. And so see this like silly star here? This kind of looks silly in the editor, but I like the way it looks here. That's because the 2D rendering engine has like this cool glow effect that I can implement. And so this is a light source, and I cranked up the glow of it. And so it looks like a big old star, like an actual gas giant. And you can see that it does implement shadows. So as myself and other ships are flying across these like planets, you can see they're casting shadows, right? So pretty cool. Now, Godot does have that light system. That's still constant, but the way it does the glow effect fundamentally changed. So rather than like my star looking like this, in the editor, I'll show you how it looks, if I can find it. Other scenes, star. Let's pull this scene up. So this is how it actually looks. Because I had no idea what I was doing. Again, this is my first game that I made in Godot, and I bit off more than I could chew. It's still not done. But I have a really rough sprite that has poor edges. It has an outline on it because I hand drew it. I have like this custom particle that I made that's just emitting from the center, and it's a hand-drawn particle. It looks really goofy, right? But it doesn't look like that in the game because the glow just goes completely over it. On top of that, I really like the way that the glow looks. Oh, I'm still here, damn it. Here, let me start a new game. Overwrite old save. I'm going to land and then leave. That way it saves the game. So another cool thing is if you watch my thruster, so see how my rear thruster, it's kind of dull. And then if I go over here, it's like super bright. I gave the thrusters glow too. So I'm going to have to research how I want to handle like some visual effects. But I know I need to delve into shaders. I haven't messed with shaders that much. I kind of did a little bit of shaders in one of the, let's see, one of my shaders in one of the games I made for a game jam. So if we go to, let's see, what was it? Was it 71? I think it was 72. Is it abducted? Yeah, abducted. So I messed around with some shaders here. So you can see I was still able to have glow effects and stuff like that. So this actually kind of works pretty well. If we play this game ended up actually being just sort of like a glorified walking simulator. So let me, oh, the music stopped because I wasn't looping it. That's fine. So let me turn this up a little bit here. I'm going to run the game. Yeah, so you can see I got like some kind of cool shaders going on here. I have a water shader going on there too. So if I go to save the world.
Hello, little duck. Hey, look.
This is an intro that I recorded.
I don't know how best to say this, but I was doing some experiments on you, and well, you moved the wrong way, and now the world is in danger. All because you messed it up. So you're gonna have to fix it. Now, look, the world is descending into darkness, and only you, for some strange, unforeseen reason, have the power to save it. You radiate light, but darkness will consume you unless you relight the shrines of hope. I don't know why I named them that, but it's up to you. Go forth and save the world.
So yeah, this was a game that my sons and I made for like a 8 or 9 day game jam. So my oldest did the wizard, my youngest did the duck.
Is
Press
this
the
thing
key.
on? You can move using WASD or the arrow keys, and you can press spacebar to quack if you want.
Yeah. So you can see I got like some
That's the ticket.
little
One
light
down,
going on.
7
There's
to
glow.
go.
There's a shader on this item. So you can see here it has like this cool shine effect. That was a shader. I'd never messed with that before. That was cool.
Oh, I see you found an item I stashed in that shrine. This one's harmless. It's just a backpack. Allows you to carry more
Alright,
items.
so now I have a backpack on my duck.
I've stashed a few more
So as I go to like
items
various
in the
places
other
and stuff,
shrines.
this is basically just a
They are
glorified
big
walking simulator. But you can see I've got like a shader on this sprite on this water too. And it's just really cool. So so this was like an experiment in just like ambiance basically. So as you can see, it's getting darker and my light is fading. And eventually a raccoon should chase me. Yeah, there he is.
Be careful of that raccoon. He'll only stay at bay for so long. But
So he
when your
hangs
light
out
gets
at the
low,
corner
he'll
of
attack.
at like basically the edge of my light radius. But once it gets low enough, he'll just come after me.
Oh, I bet you felt that one, didn't you, little?
Yeah, and he gets faster, and then eventually,
don't
once I
forget
recharge
the
my
duck,
light by going
eh?
to a shrine, this is great. I wish I could pull this kind of stuff off. So, yeah, pretty fun. So we had a lot of fun making this game, but if we're brutally honest, this game is just a glorified walking simulator. That's all it is. You just go from point A to point B, checking out different shrines. I think if I just go kind of straight up, I think there's another shrine somewhere. I forgot the pattern, but this is all like all these roads are like twisting and turning, and like it's So I kind of fade out the trees as I go behind them so you can see it. There's the raccoon again. I have to find a shrine. So the arrow just points to your last discovered shrine. Oh, and here's like a darkness that when you go there, it like sucks up your light. So I'm probably gonna lose because I don't know where the hell I'm going. I'm just lost in this dark. This freaking raccoon gets faster and faster. It's now biting the shit out of me. Here we go. I'm gonna die.
No! You've doomed the world to darkness! Never mind the fact that it was my fault that you're in this predicament, but you ruined it! You failed!
But yeah, that's that little game. So I did play around with some shaders and stuff before, which is pretty cool. So let's get this going. Let's make sure we are repeating. That way we got some tunes going, right? So yeah, I did not know about shaders and stuff when I made this crap. So yeah, these are some of the reasons that I'm just thinking about starting the game over, fundamentally architecting it from the ground up, and trying to do it in a more Godot way. But I don't fully understand that Godot way yet. But from what I've seen, and what I've seen like on tutorial videos and whatnot, as explaining what resources are, how to use them, all that stuff, I think I have a rough idea to get started. So I'm kind of throwing it together, and this is all sort of just a test at this point, just to see if it's gonna work out or not. So I got a lot of this stuff defined as far as schema goes. So resources are going to be my implementations of the schema. I'm still not happy with how these are named. And then I want, there's probably going to be like some folder for, oh yeah, scenes. Scenes is where, because in Godot, you can create scenes, which are basically like prefabs in like Unity, I think people call them. So if I were to create a new scene, let's make it of type node 2D, and I'm going to name it ship. Okay, cool. So I just created a new node. Awesome. And I'm going to attach a script to it. Let's see, actually, go to 2D. Let's attach a script. And then what I could do is, the script I should attach is probably going to be like some sort of class. So, because what I had in the old game is my ship was just, I had some classes here, and ship was one of them. And so I just declared class name here, but also my resources are class names. But this just extends node 2D rather than extending a resource. So node 2D gives you all sorts of goodies for 2D games. So it inherits canvas item and node. So you, on top of getting these properties and stuff here and all these methods, you also get all the properties of canvas item and all the properties and methods and stuff of node and everything above it. So pretty cool. So let's go ahead and figure out how I want to, because I would like to just see if I can get a ship working. If I can get a ship working, then we know that we're on the right track, at least if I can get it working. All this shit so far is just academic theory. I got no idea if it's going to work or not. All right, so where should I, so I'm going to have a scene. So scenes, let's create a new folder in here. I'm just going to call it ships. And then inside of ships, I'm going to create a new script. And I'm going to call this basically ship. And this is going to extend node 2D. So this is going to be basically our class named ship. So this is going to be our ship. This is where we're gonna, so our schema stuff, our resources, that determines like what our data is, and then this is going to basically allow us to use that data and interact with it and program behaviors and stuff like that. All that's going to be done in this because it's going to be a node, which can be a scene. Resources cannot be scenes. So let's see, ship is our let's see, ship is, I'm just going to put to do here. To do, write a blurb about what this class is. It's a freaking ship. There, we'll do that. So, in our class, look, if we go look at our old game, which we're not going to use as a template, by the way, but you can see it in the old one, I define a few signals. I have a metric shit ton of variables, most of which I probably don't even need, to be honest. A whole bunch of crap. I have a dictionary full of actions that AI uses to be able to determine how things move. I have AI state variables, like constants. I got a whole bunch of crap. And then I have a few methods, and this is where I do all the interaction. Like, this is what it does, right? So if we go back to this, starting from scratch, what should a ship be able to do? Well, we already kind of know some of that from its data. So looking at, so let's just test this out. Let's just declare some variables. So what we're going to do here is, because I want to be able to make multiple implementations of ships as well, I can basically make those all unique by passing in different resources. So let's just say let's see, ship data, which is a superfluous comment because we're going to do export var ship data, which is going to be of type ship data. So export means that it's going to be modifiable in the editor over here. So I can drag and drop resources right there. That's the idea. So that gives me a few benefits. If I change how this file structure is, which I'm going to because I'm not happy with it, once I find something that tickles my fancy and makes sense to me logically for what I'm going for, I'm going to change how this is laid out. So that means that all the references and paths to all our resources are going to change. If you do it from within the editor, Godot updates that for you, which is huge. Because the old game, my first attempt at it, if I were to say, for example, change where I store my upgrades, I'd have to go here and update this path for every single entry. And keep in mind, I've only got a few in here right now. If I were to expand this game out once I got all the systems developed, I'm going to potentially have hundreds of different upgrades in here. And that would suck. Having to go through and update every path for every one of these, that'd be rough. So right now in this old game, I'm scared to restructure it because I'm not happy with how it is in this stuff either. And I don't know, it kind of makes sense, but there's a lot of random shit just shoved in here. And if I wanted to reorganize it to make it make more sense, it'd be a heavy lift because I'd have to go through and manually correct every path, which is not ideal. But if we do it this way, Godot just handles it for us. We don't got to worry, which is awesome. I do like that. That is a nice feature. So there we go. We have our ship type, which has a variable called ship data, which is of type ship data, which is our resource. And we can shift click that to go through and see what it provides us. So let's test our autocomplete functionality. So just for fun here, right? So let's see, ready is called the moment the node enters the scene tree. Scene tree for the first time. So we can do func ready. This is going to return nothing, so void. Again, I want to do type safety as much as possible. So let's just say, just for fun, to do, this is just testing to see if autocomplete works with resources. So if I wanted to make a variable, I'll call it variable testing yay, right? And then I'm gonna make it say a float, and I can have it be equal to ship data dot. And now in the editor, I have autocomplete with what the properties of it are. This is great because in the old way of doing it, I didn't have that at all, which is gonna be massive. So if I wanted to say, hey, if I pass in this object here and I want to get the base price of it, I start typing dot base, it's not going to autocomplete to base price for me. So I might have a typo and name this base Pierce or some crap like that, and then it's like, oh, it doesn't work anymore. So this is nicer in the editor because then I can actually reference it and I can mouse over it. So it doesn't have a description available, which kind of bothers me. Because if I go to where I have it declared, I have a comment above it, but it's not showing. I wonder if I put it at the end of it following it, does it actually show up? If we go back to my ship and I mouse over this. Oh, float is wrong. Let's see, just do float. There we go. So if I mouse over this, it still says no description available. So I wonder how we do that. Let's take a look. So Godot for how to add descriptions to properties that show up in the editor, because that would be really nice. I would like to have that. Yeah, so this guy has the same question. I would like to add some description. In theory, in practice, so this is 3 years ago. Okay, so how they're doing it is, let's go back to my ship data. Let's get rid of this. Whoops, I hit print screen. There we go. Apparently, if we add 2, it should now work. It does. Now it shows what the actual description of it is. Rate of acceleration. Cool. So I'm already learning new things, and then I can already make changes as needed. So what I can do here is, I mean, probably let's just do this. So any comment that I have here, I want to replace it. Oh, I don't want to do all of it. I just want to Control F. I want to find it, and then I want to replace. How do I replace? Here we go. Okay. So I want to replace it with 2. Replace all. Bam. Look at that. Bam. So you can see it. I think it changes the color of the comment as well. But now if I go back to my ship, not only does it give me that property there, but also if I mouse over ship data, come on. Ship data, no property available. So I thought ship data should give me like a, so you see when I mouse over class node 2D, that gives me detail about it, but it doesn't do it for ship data. Why not? Well, I guess we'll read further. Ah, okay. So let's see. Let's modify our search to custom resources. Using annotations, export. Okay, cool. So a lot of this stuff. Okay, how about this? Descriptions to classes. How about that? Custom node. Looks like somebody put a... So this is a stable. So documenting a script. Okay, so it needs to follow it after, apparently. I see. I'm learning. So let's go ahead and modify some of our stuff, because I really want to have that functionality, right? So let's do this, put that there. If I save that, so doesn't look like it does it. So it does our properties, obviously, but here, I wonder if it just doesn't do it here, which is odd, because I'm defining. Huh. I don't know. We'll put a pin in that for the time being. For now, I'm sure it's just something silly. But I'm just gonna make it conform to how I had it before until I figure that out. So cool. We're doing some testing. So we have ship data. Fantastic. What else do we have for our data layer? So for our ship, we have controllers, we have weapons, we have upgrades. So let's take a look at, let's see. We save our basic properties in a resource. And then let's see. How many weapons do we have? So then what I can do is I can just export another variable. Or I can actually say, what weapons do we have? And I can just do weapons of type. And I think I just named that type, what was it, weapon? So I'm going to make an array of type weapon. And there. So in theory, I should be able to just do things with my weapons. I can iterate through them, and the weapon type. So again, this is just the data layer. This is not a weapon scene. So I think I might rename this to weapon data, because I'm probably going to have a weapon scene. Let's do that. And then what I'm going to do here is I have to go through and fix the other weapons, because it no longer extends weapon, it extends weapon data. There we go. Let's go to projectile, extends resource, that's fine. Beam weapon will extend weapon data. So I don't know. I don't really want to suffix everything with data, but that's kind of what it is. So, but all of these just modify how a weapon works. So a weapon at its base has these variables. We have a string, like what do we call the weapon? Like Super Blaster 5000, right? Is it a turreted weapon? If not, it's fixed to the ship, and it will also like fire wherever the ship is pointing. If it is a turret, that means that it points on its own, which means it probably also has its own targeting stuff, which means that AI might need to be built into it. What texture do we use for the weapon? Some weapons can have like multiple barrels. So when I create projectiles or beams, where should those originate? And so I have an array of vector 2, so I can specify the locations for where projectiles or beams should be created, like where they start, what the origin is. And then what sound should we play when we fire this weapon? So again, this is just the data. So then I can make a scene implementation of it that actually sets a sprite 2D to use this texture. I can set it to actually create projectiles at these origins. When it does fire, I can set it to use this audio stream. So this is just defining the core data of a weapon. And then I have subtypes. So a projectile weapon also like defines what projectile we're actually shooting. Okay. A beam weapon determines what beam we are shooting. So because this beam weapon implements weapon data, I get everything from weapon data and also this additional thing, which is cool. And then a beam is just like this is what basic data a beam would need. So since beams deal continuous damage, how much should we deal in a second? So we have a variable called damage per second. And then how far should this beam reach? So we have a range. So we're just defining all these properties of all the things. And I think I know how to put them together, but again, this is all theory at this point, because I haven't done it yet. Like, it looks good on paper, it makes sense in my head. I don't know if fundamentally if it's going to work or not. So that's schema. Let's go back to ships. So for our ship scene, which is basically nothing at this point, I'm going to attach a script, and I'm going to attach an existing script. Let's attach this one. Oh, this is creating a new script. So tell you what, let's just drag this over to it. Does that work? It does. So now you can see we have this script attached. So array weapon data. So maybe I don't want to take this approach. Maybe I want to actually have weapon scenes, like array, like a number of weapons with the data added to it. Hey Pavel, what's up? So I'm playing around with the idea of rewriting my game in Godot 4 using resources. So I'm kind of testing the waters to see if it's something that is going to be worth it, or if it's just going to be a bigger headache than I anticipated. And at the moment, I'm talking myself in circles, deciding on on how I want to handle things. So, yeah, that's what's good. Just doing some brainstorming, kind of thinking about how I want to implement this stuff. Have you made it work yet? Because I usually follow the route of making it work first and reworking it a bit later. No, I have not made it work yet. All I have done is just define the data of what it would look like. And then I too followed that philosophy, and that's what got me into this mess of the old game, where every time I go to implement a new feature, it's 85% refactoring old code to make the feature fit, 5% working on the feature, and then 10% finding random ass bugs because the feature doesn't quite fit still. And I'm not saying all my problems are going to be solved by rewriting it, but on a fundamental level with this game of this scope, the way that I wrote it, this was my first game in the Godot engine. So I didn't know a lot of things when I started it. I've tried multiple times to refactor it in place, and every attempt has gone down in flames and just made the code worse. So I think from a fundamental level, I think I need to re-architect it, which is what I'm thinking. And it seems like everyone and their mother agrees that resources is the way to go in Godot, especially with Godot 4, because it adds a lot of new type safety stuff, so I can have a typed array. So I'm just kind of feeling out how this works to see if I can make it work in a more Godot-friendly manner, just to make sure I understand it. And if it's making sense, then yeah, I'll just start rebuilding everything. So I'm kind of playing around with the idea of getting a ship working. And then we could go from there. See if it's something that is worth the effort of redoing everything. Because I'm not having a good time working on the game right now because of all the pain points I'm having with it. And it seems every time I try to look up solutions, the solutions I want exist, but I have to redo everything anyway, or they exist better in Godot 4. And I was writing it in Godot 3 because it was like 3 years ago at this point. So yeah, I'm just testing the waters. So right now I'm kind of thinking about how I want to handle weapons. So right now I have a basic representation of what the data of a weapon should look like. So if we go to weapon data, I should rename this to weapon data. So every weapon should have the following. And then some weapons might have different data. So projectile weapons obviously fire projectiles. So I can define what that is. What is a projectile? This is the basic data that would define a projectile. And so on and so forth. So in Discord, I posted like this diagram, which is already wrong, but it kind of gives me an idea of what the data would look like for my game. And it seems to like at least make somewhat logical sense, but this is all theory. So this is me actually testing it right now. But yeah. So let's go back to my ship. So we have a class ship, right? So let's go back to my scenes. I'm gonna rename this to just ship test, because this is just an implementation of a ship class. So this is a node. This is not a resource. So I'm pulling my data from resources, and then the ship itself will have various things that should use those resources. So I'm trying to think of how I want to structure all of that. But there are some benefits and things are working, so that's nice. So let's just do a pass here for right now. We'll do to do. So weapons, I don't think I should just have weapons just be the data. I could have weapons data, but ideally those would be attached to the weapon scenes themselves. So maybe we'll just get rid of that. And maybe what I'll do is, so if we look at this scene right now, if I click on ship, you can see over here we have ship data and it is empty. And I can choose to make a new ship data, which I might do. So maybe I might create an implementation here. See, I'm struggling with how I want to organize it. So I guess I'm just going to cobble something together, see how it works, and then fine tune it from there. And then if it's going to be worth the effort, I'll keep going. If not, I'll just go back to my old project and just continue on with that and see if I can make it better from there. So let's see. So already I'm not happy with this project structure. So I'm going to rename this to resource def like maybe custom resources. No, this is just, I'm going to call this data layer for now, because that's how I'm conceptualizing it. Data layer. And then I'll rename this to data implementations, because I'm implementing the data. That doesn't make much sense either. Whatever. Let's see. I'm just going to rename this to content for now, right? Let's just rename this to just data. We'll rename this to, I will stick with data implementations. That's what they are for now. And then we have our scenes, which are implementations of basically classes, I would imagine. So maybe I might just have a folder called scene classes. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so data implementations. So we already have like currencies. I already defined those. So maybe let's have, let's do ships. Maybe we'll do a new folder here. Ship data. So we'll do ship data. And then what we'll do here is we're going to make an implementation of a resource for, let's see, so ship data. So you can see I have my custom resource. I wonder how I define a custom icon for it. Maybe I'll look that up too. So then we're going to do something like syntocracy shuttle data. Ship data. Right? So we'll put that in there. We'll save it. And then this resource itself. So let's just say this is called syntocracy shuttle. Max speed. Well, let's just take a look at what I had in the old one, right? So let's go to my ships. Syntocracy shuttle. So this should be defined here. So you can see I've got, so let me do a screenshot of this stuff here. And then what I'll do is, this is not going to coincide one-to-one, but, so I got flame shot. Let me just pop open this Linux version of Paint, paste this over here. I'll move this to my second monitor for now, just so I can reference it. Let's go back to the new one here. So max speed, we mouse over this. So let's go back to ship data. Data, ship data. So these should have, okay. Why is it not showing me the, okay. Data implementations, ships, Docracy shuttle. It should show me what the description is when I mouse over it, but it doesn't, even though I have it properly commented. So that seems odd. Because this would say like pixels per, like basically pixels per second is what this is measured in. So our max speed of our shuttle is 360 pixels per second. The rate of acceleration is 2.4. Deceleration is 0.5. Turn speed of the old one was 180 degrees per second. The max HP of it was 100. How much mass it comes with was just 10. I don't think we should have boost speed and boost cooldown. So maybe I might just leave those blank for now. And then what sprite are we going to use for the ship? So let's go to my assets. I already imported all my sprites. So let's go to hand-drawn, ships. Let's go to, let's just drag this whole thing over. Synthocracy shuttle. Let's just drag this over to this texture. And bam. You can see we've assigned that texture to it. And if I change the structure of my files, all this stuff will remain the same because it has a reference to it, and I don't have to update those references because Godot does it for me if I do it within the editor. And then for base price, we have an array of currency. Okay, so what currency should I have? Let's add an element. Let's drag in this currency. So let's go to data implementations currency. So since this is a Synthocracy vessel, we're going to drag this over and name crypto. Okay, cool. So the amount that it's going to cost is probably, let's just say, just for ease, it costs 10,000, right? So we save this. So if I go to this code currency, it's supposed to be local to scene. So that's not working how I expect. Because I dragged that currency over. I thought local to scene meant that it'd be local to the scene that I attached it to. Because this is a resource. This is not a scene. But you can see here that it set the amount to be 10,000. This should be 0 at a base level. So I'm not sure if I'm using resources correctly. Okay. So yeah, so we have a currency of we have Synthocracy currency. So that's good. And then what sound does it play when it gets hit? I don't have that yet. So I'm gonna have to do some thinking on that. Tell you what, let's just watch another video real quick. Maybe it'll click. Because I feel like I'm making a mistake here. So let's do Godot for custom resource. Let me turn this down real quick. Or pause it. So this is a video I watched earlier. And it was kind of cool.
Resources in Godot are really useful and you should be using them more. Whether you want to create enemy variations with different stats, or you want to create a simple item system with crafting, resources are going to be your best friend. In this video, we'll first take a look at what resources are, then how you can use them, and then look at an example in the engine. So what are resources? You can think of resources as a bundle of data and code. They share a lot of functionality with nodes, but with a few differences.
So right away, for my resources, I've only been focusing on the data aspect of it. However, they can also have some code as well. So I'm gonna have to redo my thinking in terms of
nodes,
that.
but with a few differences. Just like nodes, you can declare variables and functions, and you can also give them a class name. For resources, I would probably recommend doing this every single time, and we'll find out why later. But one big difference is that resources can be saved to disk, and then loaded by other objects. If you work with Unity, this is pretty much scriptable objects. This will probably make a bit more sense when we see examples. So let's say we have an enemy, this blue dino, and he has 50 HP and 25 movement speed, whatever that means. And then we also want a variation where we have a red dino. This guy has 40 HP and 30 move speed. So one of the common ways we could do this is by creating the blue dino first, and then copying his scene or extending it and creating the red dino. Of course, this health variable and speed variable would be exported. But since they're the exact same other than a few stats, it'd be really nice to share the exact same scene. And while we could just tweak the values anytime we spawn in an enemy, it'd be really nice if we had a quick way to reference their stats.
Yeah.
So we'll start by defining a resource called enemy stats, and we'll export a few variables on this. The first one is health, then speed.
So
and
I've
of course
done
the
this
texture for the
already,
sprite.
basically.
Now, because we've given this a class name, that means we can reference it elsewhere using this name. So when we go to create a new file, we can select a resource and select our custom enemy stats resource. We can then create a blue dino version with all of the stats from the blue dino, and then create a red one with its stats. Then we just have to tweak the enemy to reference a stats resource. And just like that, we have really easy variations on these enemies. So if we need to create, let's say, a green one, all we have to do is specify a new texture and the stats that we want to change. We do have to be a bit careful with the way we load this though, since resources are shared by default. So let's say we have a blue dino who references the stats, and then let's say he gets 15 extra HP. Well, since all blue dinos are referencing the same resource, they would all also get that extra 15 HP. This might be what you want, but you probably just want to clone this resource. Thankfully, resources have a duplicate method, which lets you do exactly this.
Okay, so I thought that's what... I thought that's what this local to scene does. If true, the resource is duplicated for each instance of all scenes using it. At runtime, the resource can be modified. Okay, I messed up. All scenes using it. Currently, I have a resource that is using it. So do we not want to compose resources with each other? Because if so, then I got to redo everything again already. So how's that going to work? I guess we'll just keep watching.
But those are just simple stats. Let's talk about something a bit more practical. I'm sure every one of you has wanted to make an inventory system at some point, so let's talk about that. And resources are absolutely perfect for this. So we can start by defining an item resource. For now, we'll just give this a name and a texture. And then we can create an inventory class. The inventory doesn't have to be a resource, but it might be in your game. So this inventory can then have an array of items inside of it. And you're done. That's actually the simplest inventory you can make in Godot. And for each of the items, we can actually just have a folder inside of our project where we create new items. So for example, we could have a stick item, and a rock item, and a pickaxe. And just like other classes, resources can be extended. So for the pickaxe, maybe we'll extend item and create a tool item, which is just an item you can equip. And I won't go too much into it, but you can actually create crafting systems the exact same way. We can define a resource called a recipe, and that'll export a list of inputs, and then also a list of outputs. And then we can save those to disk as different recipes. So for example, the pickaxe might take in 2 sticks and 3 rocks. I've gone ahead and put all of these into a Godot project that you can download in the description. So let's go ahead and hop into that project and look at how it works. So here we are in Godot, and this is the project. So we can spawn enemies and shoot at them, and they'll drop random items. And if we pick up those items, and I hit tab, we can see a list of recipes. So if I click on these, we can see what they cost. And whenever we craft them, they'll take out the materials and give us the item. And pretty much everything I just showed is controlled entirely by resources. So first off, let's look at the enemy. Instead of having a bunch of individual stats exported, we actually just have this stats resource. And taking a look at that stats resource, it's pretty much what we saw in the video, plus a couple of different modifiers for movement. And inside of the enemy script,
so
we just simply...
on his example here, he has an enemy stats, which is resource, and it has a loot table, which is of type loot table. So how does he make it so that if I adjust this loot table once, it doesn't affect all the other loot tables. I guess there's that duplicate method, but how do I do that not in the code? I thought that's what this local to scene does, but we're not in a scene yet. We're just in another resource. So yeah.
Modifiers for movement. And inside of the enemy script, we just simply grab these stats and pass them along to whatever components need them. So for example, the sprite gets a texture and the health gets max health. And I'll go ahead and show you how easy it is to add a new enemy. I'll start by going into resources and enemy, and then we'll add a new resource of type enemy.
Let's take a look at his project structure.
Gets max health. And I'll go ahead and show you how easy it is to add a new enemy. I'll start.
So let's see what he has. So I don't know how he colored them. That's really interesting. But he's got art, objects, player, resources, scenes, sound, UI, util. So I wonder if his resources
and enemy.
So his resources are the actual implementation of the resources, not the declarations of them, but okay. I assume objects are where he defines those then? I'm curious. Let's see if we can take a look at his repository. So what does he have in objects? He has scenes and scripts. So he's got scenes in there. Okay, so that's not it. So we have resources. So let's say enemy. So we have a resource, but where does he define what it is? Is it in util? Okay, so he's throwing all his resources in his util folder. Like the actual declarations of them. That's where they live. Interesting. So let's go to scenes. So his scenes are like a traditional meaning of the word scene, like a level. And objects are his other scenes. So like let's take a look at our enemy here. So that's the enemy scene. Where's the script for our enemy? Enemy. So he says, I tend to keep the top level's node functionality small. Here, this node is responsible for common state variables, passing the damage signal around, and picking a random texture on spawn. For the most part, other functionality that controls the enemy is handled by specific states. Example, movement is handled by states setting velocity and calling move and slide. Okay, so other things are modifying his character body 2D. Get the hell out of here, damn thing. So he has a signal. So he has his enemy stats. Dude, just because I click somewhere doesn't mean I want you to just get the hell out of here, GitHub. Okay. So he's also declaring a few other things here that he probably could have put in enemy stats, but he didn't. On ready. Sprite 2D. Health. Okay. So let's take a look at enemy stats, which I guess will be in his util. So enemy stats extends resource. He has got texture 2D, he's got max health, max speed, variation, friction, all this stuff. And in his resources, which is where he has physical, the actual implementations of these, he's got a blue dino, he's got a green dino, Got a red dino and a yellow dino. Looking at his sprite names, dino sprites, he has one of them named Tard. Dino sprites tard.png. Okay. Maybe this is a derpy one or something, I don't know. So he's got those resources. So how does he... I guess I'm just conceptualizing this wrong then.
And then we'll add a new resource of type enemy stats. I can go ahead and call this green dino, give it a texture, and we'll say this guy has a bunch of HP, and he's really, really slow. And then last but not least, I just have to add him to the spawner script. And if I go in, I can add him, and you can see he's really, really slow, and he takes quite a few hits to kill. No need to make a new scene, we just have to create a new resource. So let's go over items. The item class is pretty much exactly what we saw earlier, with a name and a sprite, but with one small difference, which is that I'm storing them inside of an item stack, where we essentially have a reference to the item resource and a count of how many are in the current stack. Then inside of our inventory, we simply just have an array of these, as well as a couple functions to take care of things for us. As for the items themselves, they're stored on disk as resources. So if we go under Resources, Items, and Materials, we can see that a stick is defined with a name and a texture. And we can go ahead and add a new resource if we want to. So I'll go Create New, Resource, and Item. I'll just add in a fish. So for this, I'll just give it a name and set up a texture. And just like that, we have an item that's a fish. So let's see how we can use these in crafting recipes. As for crafting, similar to item stack, we have a crafting
so maybe
ingredient.
I'm just fundamentally misunderstanding how to apply resources because, yeah. So I made these resources here, but these are intended to be like a static set, but this amount can change all the time. So what really should happen is maybe I should have... Well, how should I do it then? Because if I just make a currency, that means every time I want to add a currency, I would have to type in that it's got to be a stellar. But maybe I could add another... I think I know what I have to do. I have to create at the data layer. So economy, currency. So symbol. So name and symbol should probably, I see what I have to do. I think. So because we don't want, we want the amount to be there, and then they can change it on the fly as needed, like in the code. But so this always has to be 0 when it starts. Like whenever you create a new resource, this should be set to 0. I'm just going to set it to equal 0. And by default. So I think that the name of the currency, I don't really want to make... God damn it. Yeah, so I made implementations of this resource. So this currency has a name and a symbol. But I don't know how to get it to not update the frickin' amount every time I drag and drop this to a new thing. Let's ask Claude. So... yeah, I was trying to help him structure, like have him help me structure my code. He wasn't very useful. So let's see what Claude says. Hey Claude, switching gears. I'm I've got a problem I'm not sure how to handle. I'm playing around with the idea of rewriting my game in Godot 4 from Godot 3, and I want to take an approach where I'm using resources for the data for a variety of reasons. I'm struggling in my implementation of that goal. Here's an example of a problem I'm having. I have a currency resource which looks like this. And I will paste in my resource here in a second. Copy. And then I created a few implementations of this resource where I set the name and the symbol, and then I have a ship data resource which looks like this, and then I will paste in my ship data. Let's just do a Control A, copy, paste. When I go to drag in one of the currencies for my faction, I set the amount to be 10,000, as that is what this ship will cost. However, it updates the .trs file itself with that value. Is there a way not to do that? All right, let's see what Claude says. It's probably gonna give me some bogus ass answer, but that's fine. Let me close this MS Paint thing. All right, so you're running into a classic Godot resource reference issue. When you drag a currency resource onto the base price array and modify the amount, you're directly modifying the original resource file, which affects everywhere it's used. Here's a few solutions. Separate price from currency, recommended. Create a price resource that references a currency, but has its own amount. That's just gonna give me the same fucking problem. I'm not gonna have 6,000 different fucking resources for price that just have a different number in them. Okay. This way, the currency, no, solution 2, remove amount from currency. Make currency purely a definition, no amount, and handle amounts separately in your game logic. Well, I guess I could do that, but that would suck. Okay. I'd recommend solution 1. Keeps your currency resources clean as currency types, while allowing each price to have its own amount with no cross contamination. Wouldn't I run into the same issue with the price resource? If I drag and drop a price onto my ship and then set it to be 10,000, wouldn't that update the price, update the amount for all price implementations? You're absolutely right. You'd have the exact same problem. Thank you, Claude. Here's a better solution. Create price instances inline. No. Why is this so fucking difficult? I'm just not I'm fundamentally not understanding resources. I just...
This takes in an item, an account. This is then used.
Let's just
inside of
see. Let's
crafting
see,
recipes
continue watching
as a
and see if
list of
something
ingredients
clicks.
and an output. So for example, we have this stone pickaxe item, and the recipe for that is that we have 2 ingredients of 25 sticks and 30 rocks, and we have an output ingredient of a stone pickaxe. So for example, if I wanted to change this to take in fish instead, I can simply load that in. And if I open the game, yeah, that uses fish. It's one thing to see how these are used, but I'm sure you want to make your own. So let's go to resource
Okay,
together.
so let's take a look at what he has here. So he's got an array of crafting ingredient. So crafting ingredient has an item and a count. So I probably need to do something similar with like my currency, to where I have an array of, I don't know, currency. So like say, for example, like an array of wallet, right? Maybe I have like different wallets for different currencies, right? And then I have item would be basically be like currency, and then count would just be the amount, right? So I could get rid of the amount from that. So I have to make the crafting ingredient. Okay. So how would I structure that though? So if we look at currency, basically this is the problem here. The currency is a resource. It should have a name and a symbol for sure, but I need to have something that like houses this resource. So what the hell would it be? Spendable? I don't know what to call it. Because this is like a particular currency, and then you have like the amount of it. So maybe I put like a wallet or something. I'm not sure. Let's try it. So let's go to currency. Let's just create new script. We're going to call this wallet. I can change the name of it later. But this is going to extend resource. We're going to create it. Let's go into wallet and say, hey, class name wallet. And then what we're going to have is what currency is held in this wallet. And then what we can do here is we can basically say export var currency of type currency, and then we could say how much of this currency do we have, and then I can do export var amount, which will be a float. So then what I can do is I can go into my currency, I can comment out the amount, don't need that. I'll just keep that commented out for now. So we have the name and the symbol of the currency. So good. So now if I go back to my ship data, let's go back to my ship data. So where do I put my implementation? Data implementation, ships, synthocracy shuttle. So for here, we need to change this to be, so let's go to ship data. We're going to change this to be an, this doesn't seem right either, array of wallet. So, and then, so now if we go here, we specify, let's just clear this out. So array wallet, add element, we're going to add a new wallet, I guess. The currency is I can drag and drop this currency. So I can just take currency synthocracy. I can drag that there, and the amount is going to be 10,000. That works. It's kind of a roundabout way of doing it, but it works. So maybe I could still use currency as the main type, and then I can just have like currency type as, okay, let's do that. Let's get rid of this. Let's go into our wallet. Actually, no. Let's first go to currency. So we're gonna name this currency type. And I'm just gonna get rid of this comment for now because we'll have to update it later. To do comment what this is. What is this currency type called? We don't need this. What symbol should be used to denote this currency type? Okay. And then what we're going to do, we're going to come back to this in a second. But now let's go back to my data. I'm going to rename this. No, I'm going to rename this to be currency type. I'm going to rename this one to just be currency. And if we go in here, we're going to rename this class to be currency. And then we're going to make this currency type. And the amount that we have. We're going to save that. We're going to go back to our currency type. And yeah, we can just keep that separate. It doesn't need to extend currency because it's a separate thing. Interesting. Okay. I think I'm learning. So now we can go back to our ship data. We can say this is an array of currency. Spell. Let's save that. And then we'll go back to our data implementation of synthocracy ship. We can go here to our array of currency. We can add an element. We can actually just add a new currency right then and there. And then we can just set the currency type. I can drag and drop that. So we'll drag this synthocracy one over. And then we have 10,000 of that currency. I think that makes sense. What do you guys think? Am I on the right track? Am I just making words come out of my face? Am I just blowing smoke out of my ass? I think that approach would probably work. But it does mean I have to adjust how I think about using these resources. Oh, I forgot to turn my music back on. Turn that music back on. Hell yeah. Okay, so okay. I think I would double check for where it may show up wrong somewhere else and go check. So where else would it show up? So maybe I can make another one and make sure that it doesn't have like a... Well, it shouldn't go wrong anymore because now I have these resources here, and the only thing that's being stored on them is the name of the currency type and the symbol that's used. And then I have a currency resource which is local to... So yeah, you're right. Maybe the currency might be... The amount might be weird, but since I made that new currency just right there on the scene, Actually, no, this is not a scene. This is a resource. So I made a new currency. I think it duplicated it. But just for fun, let me add another one. I'm going to add a new currency. And then I'm going to make it the same type. I'm going to do synthocracy currency. And I'm going to do 25,000. Looks like we're good. It did not modify the earlier instance of it, even though we're using the same currency type and we're using currency here. Okay. I'll keep it. So let's add an element. So say synthocracy shuttle, it's like a low-end shuttle. Could be on the independent market. So the other human faction is the coalition. So you might be able to purchase this ship in coalition space as well. So if we do new currency type, let's just load in, let's just drag over the coalition. Boom. And let's say you can maybe buy it for something like, I don't know, like 12,000 of the coalition currency, right? So maybe this shipyard. So I guess so this is ship data. So because exchange rates vary, right? Maybe the ship might be worth a base price more like numerically for the coalition currency. And then I could scale that based on like modifiers at my services of locations, I think. Okay, so it does work though, which is nice. So you won't be able to buy this ship in Elendari space or Zerzalian space. So you won't have to worry about those currencies buying this ship. Cool. So this already adds a lot more customization to this stuff than the old one. I had a brief hiccup in learning how to use the damn thing, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. So cool. Our first implementation is there. Now this is just the data though. So now I have to create a class that actually uses this data. So we have ship data. What are we going to do with it? And then, so I have to make implementations of controllers as well, I think. So what I could do, so let's try this, right? So for our ship, is this, let's see, what controller are we using for this ship? Export bar controller is of type ship controller, I believe. There we go, ship controller. So then if we go to our scenes, and we go to my ship test scene. So right off the bat, let's do a few things. Let's add a sprite to this scene. Sprite 2D. Bam, we're going to add that. In our ready function, we are going to basically set the sprite to be what the texture is from our ship data. So set the texture of our sprite. So we're going to say sprite 2D dot texture equals, and then we can do ship data dot texture. That's a big ass fly on my wall. No, whatever. I'll kill him later. All right. So we did that. So if we instance this, it should have a sprite, right? Okay, cool. So now we have to, let's go back to my scene here. So for ship data, I can just basically make a new ship data. Or actually, I'm going to clear this out. Let's clear. Let's go back to my implementation of ship data here. I'll put that in there. So that has this stuff already defined. Fantastic. And then for a controller, so now we have to do some more thinking on our controller. So ship controller has a signal whenever our ship controls have changed. Ship controls is this. Just basically booleans, right? And I have a player controller, which is extend ship controller. So basically what I would do is on this is where I would detect my player input. And then I would just basically emit that signal of input changing. I'm just thinking for the AI controller though, how is it, because for the AI behavior, how it's determining what buttons to press basically to control the ship are like, hey, am I pursuing somebody? Okay, so I now have to know where my ship is, where the enemy ship is, and then I can calculate their direction, whereas the player controller has no knowledge of any of that shit. So I probably have to create some sort of method for the AI controller that passes that stuff in. I think that would still work. For now, let's just try to get player stuff going. So first things first, let's go to project settings. Let's go to input map. Let's create some inputs. So if we go to ship controls, won't let me do it. Ship controls. Let's go to project input map. Wow. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Wow. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just winging it. So add new action. So we're gonna have to basically add these as actions so that we can have the player like detect keystrokes and stuff. So, and then we can also rebind these as well in the options. So allow players to do what they want for them, which is nice. So let's see, let's add, I'll just keep them named the same. So we'll do accelerate. And we're gonna add that. And then we're gonna add W. I'm gonna add another input for arrow key. And then I could probably get like joypad buttons if I want to make it controller friendly. We could do D-pad, or we can do, let's see, left action. Nope. There's lots of buttons. Holy balls. The joypad axes. Left stick. So left stick up. Let's do that. So that way, if I'm playing on a controller, I could do that too. That'd be awesome. So there, I can map all these physical inputs to this input map of accelerate. And then I could determine basically whether or not this action is being used. And then I can... yeah, and then I wouldn't have to do any of this for AI because they'll just be passing, like they'll just be updating their ship controls directly. But for player controller will update ship controls based on these inputs that I program here, or that I bind here. So we're not going to add another one. Let's go ahead and type in another one. So let's do we'll just do turn left. Add. And for turn left, we're gonna use the A key. Or we're also going to use the left arrow key. Or we're going to use the joypad axis. So where is it? Left stick left. Let's try that. Cool. Now we're going to do turn right. Add. So turn right's going to be the D key. If you're using standard WASD. I do want to eventually figure out how to make these rebindable as well. So that I know that there's some, like, the QWERTY layout is not the only keyboard layout. So, like, I think I was in an airport in Leipzig, Germany for a few hours once, and I tried to use one of their computers, and the Z key, like the keyboard layout, was super weird. It was unfamiliar to me. So let's do right arrow key, and then we'll do left joystick to the right. So where is that? Left stick, right. There we go. Cool. Man, I really love just how Godot gives you all these tools to do all this stuff. This is cool. So we got turn left, turn right, accelerate. Let's do decelerate. What are the decelerate? No, decelerate. Decelerate. We're gonna add that. For this one, we're gonna just press S to slow down, which is our back key. Then we can press the down arrow key, and then we're gonna add the joypad axis. Let's see, left stick down. Cool. Look at that. So in theory, we could actually use a controller, which could be an interesting concept. So filter by name. So let's just do add new action. Let's do strafe left. Strafe left. I don't think I have strafe speed in my ship data. I might not. So we're gonna add that. So to strafe, if we're strafing to the left, we're going to use Q for that. And then I don't know what other key I would use for that. I don't know what other keys I would bind for that yet. So I'll just leave that alone for now. We'll just do strafe right. We're going to add that. We'll just set this to just be the E key for right now. And then we have fire primary. So let's, no, clear all. Fire primary. Now in this, I'm not sure how I want to do this. I mean, left click is what I had before, I think. That just shoots the weapon. No, spacebar was what I had to just fire the primary. But maybe we want to do something else. So on top of that, maybe I want to be able to just select which weapon you currently have like selected, like which series of weapons. So primary weapons, I don't know. I'll have to do some more thinking on that as well. But for now, I'm just gonna put in the existing implementation to where we fire primary weapons just basically by pressing spacebar. Boom. Okay. And then I also want to add an action, so on a joypad, like for buttons. Imagine having 122 buttons. So it's the Sony Cross, Xbox A, Nintendo B. It's basically what it would be, right? Let me see. I'm gonna grab a controller really quick, just so I can. I don't use controllers that much, but yeah, it'd be nice to have. Let's see if I can grab it. All right, I scrounged a controller from my Switch, so I got this little controller here. Interesting. So A, Actually, I think this is it. Is that the default Switch layout? So A is like the right, B is bottom, Y is left, X is top. I think that's the Switch layout. Maybe. I think this is like an Xbox controller. I don't know. Either way, as I hold the controller, I think I want to shoot with my right trigger. I think that'd be like how I want to shoot my freaking weapons. So maybe we add, do we have like right trigger? We got shoulder. Bottom action. Okay, so this is a Nintendo layout. So what do I use for trigger? So this is like L1. Looks like we got limited support for that. Looks like, I guess bumper is what it supports. Doesn't support triggers though. How do I program triggers? I'm curious. Let's do a brief little sidetrack here. Godot 4. How to add controller input for triggers on the controller, if that makes sense. That's probably really crappy. For science, that's right. For science. So let's see, input mapping. You could just put right trigger. Where the hell is right trigger? Show me. Okay, I'll watch your damn video.
Hey everyone, this is Brady, the game dev artisan.
Oh, let me turn off my music really quick. Turn that down.
To continue our series on the Godot fundamentals,
okay.
We'll be adding
show me the input maps.
Our tank and navigate our
Where you
UI.
at?
So that when this input option has its item selected, we'll want to call the input for the right trigger.
Joypad. It's an axis. Okay. I view it as a button, maybe not an axis, but apparently in their mind it is an axis. Here we go, left trigger. So we're going to do right trigger. Look at that. We found it out for science. So fire primary. I'm not going to bother mapping the others right now because I never even had a fire secondary or fire tertiary. So don't have that. And then to boost was just shift. So if I just put in boost, I'm going to add that. We'll just put in shift. And then how would I want to boost on a controller? I don't know. Probably left bumper. I think left bumper feels good. So let's do left bumper. Right shoulder. I wonder if this is like another axis. Okay. So it should be, it's got to be a bumper then. So a shoulder. So left shoulder. There. So we have that mapped. Cool. Maybe I should start playing my game with a controller. That'd be kind of cool. So there we go. We have an input map. So let's save this. Let's go back to player controller. So we already have a to-do here, define player-specific behavior. So because we extend ship controller, we have access to emit this signal. So whenever we change anything. So I'm thinking, because in my old game, in the process function or method of the node, that's called like every frame. I was basically checking for input and then doing the thing. These resources don't have a process event. So that means I'm going to have to expose a function or a method that can be called by a node inside the scene tree that does have a process event, as well as update my signal. So, interesting. So ship controller. So I should probably have like a get input method or something. And then what this does is this just basically checks the input and then returns the ship controls. And then for AI, I could have its own implementation of that method, but it might have to take a few arguments so that it can actually calculate things itself. I don't know. Let's just get player working and then we can play with AI. So to do, let's see, we don't really have any variables we need to declare right now. So let's just make a function. So make a function. So func, we're not going to underscore it because we want it to be like a public function, which means it can be called outside of this resource. So it can be called by somebody externally, basically. So let's make it, let's just call get ship controls. Because that's what it's going to do. Is it's basically going to return like a version of ship controls. I don't know if it should be passing that every time or not, though. I don't know. We'll try it out. So get ship controls. Whoa! Saint Solitude with a $20 super chat? Thank you. That's awesome. I don't know why me meandering around in this code is worth $20, but I appreciate it, man. Thank you. That is awesome. Get ship controls. We're going to return ship controls. We're going to return like a resource. So I think that should be okay. Because what we can do, I don't know if that's necessarily how it's meant to be used. In fact, I don't think that's how it's supposed to be used, but we'll see. Let's just go with it. So let's see. Get player inputs. Let's see. Can we even get them from this without being in a scene tree? I don't know. We'll try it. We're just breaking stuff for science. Let's give it a shot. So what we're gonna do is, I could take it. I could take that in as an argument. So let's see. How did I do that in the old game? So let's go to process. So if we're controlled by the player, we have a function called get player input. Our basically doing is input is action pressed. So let's take a look at the input in Godot 4. Pull up documentation, GD script. You know what? I'm just going to go here to player controller. And I'm just going to say var, I'm just going to say input. I want to view the documentation for input. The input singleton handles key presses, mouse buttons and movement, gamepads, and input actions. Actions and their events can be set in the input map tab in the project settings with the input map class. Note, inputs methods reflect global input state and are not affected by control except event or viewport set import is handled. Those methods deal only with the way input is propagated throughout the scene tree. So this says global. So I think it should be set in, or it should be usable inside here. So let's just try it. So let's go ahead and do, let's see, prepare our resource that we're going to return. So we could say, hey, var output is ship controls equals ship controls. Do we have a dot new? Is that a thing we have? Looks like it. Maybe. So resource, do we have? So they could be loaded from disk, but can I create them on the fly? Okay, so I think here I just went overboard with resources. This isn't something that we have to save to the disk. So I don't think we should have ship controls. But okay, I wonder, how do I make a custom dictionary? Godot 4 custom dictionary. So basically, like the language I use normally at work is Go. Go is a statically typed language. You can create your own custom types. And I keep wanting to make like my own structs is basically what I want to do. So type custom dictionary types. Let's see. I'm coming from TypeScript. Oh, joy. I wonder what the best way to define certain dictionary types or any alternatives to doing that in GDScript. I would love something like var current attack of type dictionary equals this basic type. This is from 2 years ago. So they're saying use resources here. Okay. So maybe I am on the right path then. I don't know. Let's just try it, see what breaks for science. So var output of type ship controls equals ship controls dot new. So we're declaring a new resource, so it's all friggin' blankety bloop. And then we're just going to go through and just for quick and dirty code, we're just going to check if input dot is action pressed. Actually, you know what? No, we're going to, yeah, is action pressed. So the action name that we're going to have, let's just do accelerate. If it is, that's going to evaluate the true or false. We can say update. I'm not going to put comments here. We're just going to update our output. Dot accelerate equals true. And if it isn't, output dot accelerate equals false. So this feels kind of redundant because we already have our input maps. However, I think doing it this way will allow us to have AI control the ship in the same way without having to actually, like, I'm not going to program AI with thumbs to how to use a controller. That's not going to happen. But this should let us do it. So now we just basically have to go through and do this for every input that we want to check. So let's do accelerate. And then we'll do decelerate. So because this one's easy, only got to change 2 letters. Decelerate, decelerate, and decelerate. Cool. So I'm just going to copy this, and then we're just going to do a little pastification. And then what we're going to do is return the output of our controls. And then we can just return the output. So that means that any method, let's see, error at 629. Oh, right. Forgot to do that. So that means that any method that wants to get basically like what our controllers are, can just call this get ship controls from our player controller, and it will return these ship controls so that we can do the AI accordingly, or we can like move the ship accordingly. So nice, I like that. So then we just gotta knock out the rest of these. So what other inputs do we have? So ship control, we have decelerate, we have turn left. Let's do that. Turn left. Turn left. And then I'm just going to copy this since I named them the same. Perfect. Cool. And then we'll just copy this. We'll do turn right. Amazing. I can't believe somebody donated, like, they super chat $20. That's insane. That's so cool. Oh, that's awesome. Last time somebody super chatted $20, it was because I was doing a game jam, and I had my sons involved. And since they were doing a lot of the art and sounds and stuff, and I was just doing the programming, somebody super chatted $20 saying, "Hey, you should hook up your sons since it's a family thing, right?" So I gave them each $10. Pretty cool. Even though, you know, with YouTube, how they have to take their cut, you don't actually get $20, but that's fine. Yeah, man, I love watching this stuff. This is how I feel trying to create a TTRPG. Dude, I am constantly second-guessing myself on every decision in the history of ever. That's what development is for me, man. I'm just sitting like, should I do it this way or this way? And I'm just trying to logic out what to do. But mainly I'm trying to get a handle on what tools I have at my disposal and how to use those tools. Half the time it feels like I'm using a drill trying to screw in a nail into a board. Like, it could probably work, not that well, but you could probably do it. When in reality, if you just don't use a nail and use a screw, you get that right in there. I don't know. I'm gonna turn my music back on. There we go. So, yeah. So, but I think we gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet. So let's just break some shit. Get player inputs. Can we even get them without being a scene tree? I think we can, because we've discussed that input is global scoped, not necessarily scene tree scoped. So how far along are you with making your TTRPG? Like what kind of rules are you going to have for it? Like, is it a D20 system? Is it like a D6? Is it 2D12? Like, what are you thinking for what's the gist of your TTRPG? Because I'm really curious, because after trying to make my own, just for my sons and I, it was kind of cool, but it was definitely a big learning curve for me. And I don't know if there was much interest in my own TTRPG, but I didn't make it for everybody. I just made it for my boys and I. And we kind of have fun playing it. So that's all that matters. So let's see. What input are we going to do next? We did turn left, turn right. Let's just do strafe. Get that going. Strafe left. So we'll do strafe left. Then we'll copy this. We'll copy this. Or paste it. I've been trying to nail down the inventory and crafting of Ark Survival Evolved. D100. Whoa. I've only played a little bit of Ark, but I've seen like Neebs Gaming. I've seen a bunch of their videos on it, and so that's an in-depth system. I've never played. Oh, that's not true. I was gonna say I've never played a TTRPG that had crafting in it, but I've never utilized the crafting in a TTRPG system. Because most of the time, like when we're playing, we're all about like, oh, dungeons, adventures, dragons, you know, all that shit. But we never really get into any of the downtime features, especially like being able to like craft things. And it's always been kind of like hand wavy and ambiguous and just kind of rule of cool kind of thing. But if you have an actual TTRPG system that's like nailing down inventory and crafting of like Ark, that's impressive. That sounds interesting. I only play solo, so I only wait on myself. You know, that's fair. That's awesome. So I did a I did a video like doing a play test of my Gladiators Glory and Disgrace TTRPG, and that was the first time I've ever played TTRPG solo, and it was a whole new experience for me. Kind of mind-blowing. So it's really yeah, that was fun. It's amazing how much fun you can have in your own world of make-believe, just kind of making stuff happen. I mean, it brings me back to when I was a kid and I had like a bunch of Legos, and I would have like I would construct like this castle, and I would have a bunch of guys with like swords and armor and stuff like that, and I'd make like a bunch of catapults and stuff, and I would do like a siege. And I remember having these like dice from Yahtzee or whatever, and I would have one person roll one dice and the other Lego guy roll another dice, and whoever had the higher dice won. And so it just brings me back to when I was a kid, just kind of rolling Yahtzee dice with my Legos, simulating a siege. Pretty cool. Oops, I did not want to do that. Let's copy this. Yeah, now we'll do strafe right. So we'll do strafe right. Copy this. Holy crap, it's already after 10 o'clock. I might have to get to bed soon, because I have to be up early. Because depending on the weather, let me do a new window here. Shrink this down. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da-da. Let's see what the weather is tomorrow. Supposed to be 90 tomorrow? Fuck that. I'm not riding to work tomorrow. I'm not riding my bike for 8 miles to work. That's hot as shit. What's the wind supposed to be like? 4-mile-an-hour winds. No, 11-mile-an-hour winds. Okay, so depending on the wind direction, that could be good. Let's see what Google says for weather, since it's usually more correct. No, I did not want to do that. Just show me. So tomorrow, so it's supposed to be a high of 87. No chance of precipitation. It's supposed to be pretty humid. And light winds. Okay. Fuck. It's 90 here and it's 10:16 p.m. Well, you got the same time zone that I'm in, at least. But I don't know what the weather, it was. God damn it. Let me just pull it up again. New window. Shrink that down. Drag it back over here. Let's see. It's currently 70 something here, like 71, 72. So it's a little hotter where you are. That's nuts, man. You must be like in Florida or something, or down south. In one of the Carolinas or something. Florida, yeah, nailed it. You're probably over there making your own TTRPG systems, fighting off alligators and like crocodiles and shit. Doing high-speed chases. There was a funny game that we would play at my old work where we would have new people, and we used to do a joke on them like, oh, you have to do the Florida Man test. And that's where you type in Google Florida Man and then like your birthday, like just the month and the date, and just to see what headline pops up. Mine was something like Florida Man robs a bank with a pair of scissors and injures a bank teller or something. I was like, holy shit, man, Florida's nuts. All right, and the last one I think we have to do is boost. And I think, oh, we have to do the fire as well. So we could do fire. Actually, we'll do boost. Yeah. Yeah, I always love all the Florida Man memes because the headlines go hard, man. They really do. All right, and then we got the last one we'll do is just fire primary. So let's copy this. Do a little paste-a-rooney. Fire primary, and then we will do fire primary. Amazing. Copy. Pasta. Save. Okay, so now we have a basic kind of rudimentary method here. Get ship controls, and all we're doing is we're just preparing a new resource. We're setting the output, and then we're just returning it. So pretty basic as far as programming wise goes, but yeah. So now that we have that, we in theory have a player controller. So what I can do here is on my ship test, or I guess my ship script here, this will be at the scene level. So let's go to the scene. So we're gonna have a variable that's exported that is controller. And then, oh, that's cool. So you can see here, it's automatically detecting we have the base ship controller, but we also have AI controller and new player controller. That's cool. I like that a lot. Let's do a new player controller. So now we have a new player controller. Cool. What a big ass fly that just flew by. What the hell? Get out of here. Fuck off. It's my house. All right. Oh, it's already 10:20. I'm on a roll though, man. Kicking ass. But I'm gonna be a zombie at work tomorrow if I don't go to bed. Fuck. Maybe I'll ride to work anyway. Because mama didn't raise no bitch. And then I'll just regret my life choices tomorrow on the ride home. Because I'm sure the ride to work's gonna be nice. And then the ride home is gonna be all hot. But it's okay. I'll have water. I'll be fine. Okay. So in theory, yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna keep plugging around with this in my spare time, but it was nice to just be able to kind of brainstorm and bounce ideas off you guys. I appreciate y'all watching. While I struggle to understand resources, I feel like I'm overthinking them, or I'm conceptualizing them incorrectly. Because I'm thinking of like, oh, a Godot resource is just basically like a type that I can define, and I can sort of make implementations of that type wherever I want. But yeah. Get some rest, brother. Just make a note of the mindset you were in. Hell yeah. That's good advice. I love it. So let me save this. I should make a repository for this before I go to bed. So let's go to my GitHub. I guess I closed it, but I'm signed into it. So let's just go to my GitHub. Let's make a new repository. I'm gonna call this one Neurality 30. What did I name the? Neurality-3092-GD4. That's what I named it. Neurality-3092-GD4. So I don't want to mix this code with my existing repository, so I'm just gonna make a new one. The rewrite of my space game. We're gonna make this bad boy private because I do want to sell this eventually. We're not going to initialize it. We're just going to create the repository. And then so now we have some commands that we can run. So what I'm going to do here is inside Godot, I'm going to go to open in file manager. So we already have a .git ignore from creating the project, because Godot has a flag like use Git for source control, so that's nice. So I'm gonna open this in terminal. I'm gonna move this in the terminal over here, and then I'm gonna bump this up, get my terminal going. So let's see. So we're gonna create a new repository or push existing. So we want to basically create a new repository from the command line. So we already have some content. So we'll just do the git init. We'll do a git status just for fun. See, we have all this stuff here, so I'm gonna do a git add. Do another git status. There we go. So these are all, I added all the assets and stuff from the old game, so it's got a bunch of stuff in it, which is fine. So then we're gonna do a git commit -m. We'll just do initial commit. Okay, git status. We're on branch master, which is weird. I remember a few years ago, I thought GitHub changed that. It's supposed to be main now, because master has negative connotations. So, yeah. So let's do git branch -m. We're going to name it main. Git status on branch main. Then we're going to do a git remote add origin. We'll do my little thing here. GitHub.com xwizard g neurality 3092 gd4.git. Because I have my SSH keys saved on this computer, it automatically authenticates me. It's awesome. Git push. We're gonna do a -u to set it to be upstream. Origin main. So it's writing the objects, which means it's transmitting it across the wire. So we're 21% done, 27, 43, 51, 52. We are getting there. Okay, it's almost there. And then once it's done, I can refresh the page and then bam, all my code will be there. And then I can pull this repository to my laptop in case I want to work on it at work and all that stuff. So there we go. Should be done. If I refresh, biggity bam, our code is there. Cool. Awesome. So if my computer explodes in a giant ball of flame, I'm good. Project's backed up. So let me close these. Close that. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you again, Saint Solitude, for that $20 super chat. That was massive. That's awesome. And good luck on your TTRPG. Let me know how it works. I'm excited about the crafting concept. That's kind of a cool thing. Anyway, that's it for me. I'll catch you guys next time.